Today on Film Riot, we cars because vehicles. Welcome to Film Riot, the show that takes mystery out of the effects and techniques, going to some of your favorite Hollywood films. I'm your host, Ryan Connolly, and today we're covering week 2 of our action month, talking about our car chase scene, which, of course, if you have not watched it, go here first to check it out, or here. So cute. Last week I talked about how I had to stay flexible and change a lot of my original ideas to make our day when we were shooting the foot chase scene. And this shoot day was even more challenging than that. Originally we had more cars and drivers in a totally different location, but due to some scheduling difficulties, we had to adjust literally everything. We went from 3 stunt cars and a motorcycle to 2 stunt cars and then just 1 stunt car and our grip van. Originally, we also had 4 stunt drivers, but ended up with just 1. Luckily, we were able to get the amazing Zendara Kennedy, who is one of the most badass drivers I've ever seen and an all-around wonderful human. She's worked on stuff like Fantastic Four, Pixels, X-Men Days of Future Past, The Flash, Crimson Peak, and in fact, this is her. So the script that we followed on the actual day was written by me in the car on the way to the location. And then once we got there, like with our first scene, I was able to adjust based on what we physically had there. But after we figured all that out, we still had 2 main challenges. First was that we only had 1 stunt driver for most of the day. Luckily, she's absolutely amazing, but it meant that we couldn't actually get the cars too close to each other for safety's sake. And this also meant that we had to keep the speed at which we were driving considerably lower than what I needed to create that feeling of excitement. We were actually only doing around 25 to 30 miles per hour throughout that entire scene. And the second issue was that the road was a lot shorter than what we actually needed, so we had to just keep running it over and over, doing a short piece, then resetting back to the start, all the while shooting in such a way so it wouldn't be noticeable while you're watching it that you're just seeing the same piece of road constantly throughout the entire piece. Connolly! And the way I got around this was all through framing. I kept each car in its own shot, then used a shot like this one to make it seem like they were closer to each other than they actually were, where in reality they were much further apart. We just used that pan to give the camera car time to slow down and get closer to the van. Then I had the speed issue. For this, I tried to keep the camera as low to the ground as possible for a few shots. By doing this, I can use the proximity to the asphalt to give the feeling of speed since we're having more of the environment shooting past the lens, which makes something like 30 miles an hour look closer to 60. To get that close to the road safely, I'm using the Osmo system taped to a stick, which we just hung out the car, and I was able to frame and monitor my shot right from my iPhone. On top of that, I'm keeping all the shots nice and smooth. That way, in post, I can speed them up without it being super noticeable. All of that was possible thanks to, again, us shooting on the DJI Osmo and the Inspire 1, so I was able to get all these shots on the ground with the Osmo and no longer tracking shots like this one with the Inspire and still have an incredibly smooth movement to speed up later. But we talked about that more in the DJI episode right here.
I'm gonna not think about it. Does that look realistic? No.
And finally, we had the issue of that short stretch of road. For this, I chose the side of the road to shoot on that had the most generic background. That way there weren't any obvious landmarks to pick up on as we moved past that same piece of road over and over. Then it was a matter of choosing angles and the sequence of shots in the edit to mask it. Cutting in and out of the car and then framing right alongside of them for a lot of the shots went a long way to getting that to work. Of course, we have some great stunt moves happening in the scene, and to pull these off, since again, we only have the 1 stunt driver for most of the day, I constructed the shots and when the moments happen around that, knowing that I'd have a second stunt driver for about an hour at the end of the day. So I placed 3 super cool car spin flippy thingies in the scene, 1 at the beginning and 1 at the ending where there was no second car, so easy enough to shoot that throughout the day. And then the one that needed the second stunt driver, we held until the end of the day along with this shot.
They're shooting at us!
Oh my God! Shoot back! Outside! Outside!
I'm sorry, I'm nervous!
We talk about how we pulled that shot off in the main DJI episode, so I won't go into that again here. Originally, I had a much more complicated shot that I wanted to pull off, but with the amount of time that we had left in the day, I knew there was no way we were gonna get it. So I trimmed it to be something more feasible to actually achieve in the time that we had left. But it is an idea that I have in my back pocket for another project sometime. So again, with this scene, it was another lesson for me in not letting myself get too married to any one idea and to let myself stay flexible and adjust what I'm doing based on what's possible to actually achieve. Since if I would have stuck to my guns and tried for my original ideas, there is no way we would have made our day, which would have ended up with a totally failed project. But now we sponsor and then look at some VFX and color grading. If If you're a budding filmmaker, entrepreneur, or innovator, domain.com is the place to go when the next idea hits you. I know that you've heard me say that the list of available domain extensions is growing, but you now have the opportunity to name your site and build your brands in ways that was never before possible. You can choose from a growing list of 400 plus domain name extensions like .com, .org, .design, and .club. And to show you some love, they're giving you 25% off their already affordable prices when you buy domain names, web hosting, or email. Just use a coupon code FilmRiot at checkout, and when you think domain names, think domain.com.
Is that your first experience drifting in a stunt car?
No. That kind of drifting, yes.
What was it?
It's awesome. I'm a badass by association now.
There were a bunch of small invisible effects in this one, like replacing the license plate, adding some dust kicking up from the road, some flares with the headlights, all pretty straightforward. But then we also had muzzle flashes, which we used assets from Rampant Design's new muzzle flash pack. Completely awesome mix. It has a great variety at really high quality. And finally, we had that windshield cracking from the bullet hits. I'm not gonna go into the tutorial on that since Stark already created one on our Film Riot Extras page right here, which you can find right here. But one of the other main considerations was the color correction and grade on this one, which took a lot more elbow grease to make it all work. Since I'm matching 3 different cameras with the Red Epic inside the car, the Osmo outside on the ground shots, and the Inspire 1 for all our drone shots. But on top of that, we are moving fast to get everything, so I just needed to accept whatever natural light wanted to do, which meant we did our best to balance everything on the day in camera, and Josh Knepper did do an amazing job of that, but we still knew that it was gonna take a little extra work in post to really nail it down, like with this shot inside the car. We didn't have any extra lights to bring up the level inside the car to balance with the exterior, so inside of Premiere, I'm using the same method that I showed in an episode of Film Riot a few weeks back, where we drop in an overall grade using a LUT and then correct the clips individually to match and sweeten. So here's our original shot, which we then add our overall grade to, but then on the actual clip, we'll add a few instances of Lumetri color. These two are bringing up the levels to where we want, and then we add another one just to handle the back window, which we do by masking around the window, bringing down the highlights. Then right inside of Premiere, we just track forward on this mask, and it does a solid job of moving it where it needs to for the whole shot. Then I add my last layer of Lumetri and use this one to handle Josh's face. Mask around and track just like we did with the window, and this one's used to bring up the levels on his face. And then we have this shot, which we'll look at the final first, then we start pulling back all the corrections, and you can see how each layer helps to bring out the overall image, using each to focus in on correcting one specific thing.
You said duffel bag!
But that's it for today, and again, if you have not seen our full episode with DJI, check that out on their channel right here. And of course, please check out the notes below to see all the incredible people who helped us make this scene happen, and I'll see you next week when a whole other scene of whoop ass is released.